Big baseball news, Cody. Now that Pete Rose is dead, he has a shot at getting in the Hall of Fame because Rob Manfred has removed the lifetime ban on Pete Rose, Shoeless Joe Jackson, some of the other Black Sox scandals players, and their lifetime ban has been removed. He is the all-time hit king, and he begged to have his lifetime ban lifted for gambling when he was a manager of the Reds on baseball. How do you feel about this whole thing?
I find myself in the middle because purely for baseball reasons, Pete Rose belongs in the Baseball Hall of Fame. He is the hit king. He has more hits than anyone ever. And I don't know if anyone is ever going to break that record with how pitching has evolved for decades.
Right.
Since, right?
Launch angle, all that stuff.
But he's not exactly a good person.
He had some demons.
Right?
No question about it.
You can go back to just, he was accused of statutory rape back in like the 2010s. And in 2022, he was doing an event at the Phillies. He was part of they were celebrating the World Series team he was a part of. Mm-hmm. And it became a huge story. Not really for that, but because reporters asked him about it, he told this reporter, like, it was 55 years ago, babe. Like, why are you bringing this up? And I think he definitely has denied it. But the point that I'm getting at here is that there's a lot of baggage with him, and that probably weighs the most in terms of him, in terms of morals and stuff like that. So that's why I find myself in the middle. I won't lose sleep if they put him in the Hall of Fame, but I understand why they might not. But I put my hands up all at the same time too, saying, well, there are plenty of scumbags that are in the Hall of Fame.
There you go.
And
I know a lot of the players that are in there and did it the right way will tell you that I believe the word integrity is on their plaque. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's a whole nother thing. It's a museum. It's a Hall of Fame. Great. I just don't understand why we wait to do these things until after somebody is dead. It makes no sense to me. What's the point of it? So that their families can have a little extra cash coming in? That's nice, but I remember being there for Ron Santo going into the Hall of Fame and thought, why did they wait until he was dead? Nothing ever would have meant more for him than to go into the Hall of Fame. Instead, it was his number going up on the flagpole at Wrigley Field that was the highlight of his life. What's the point of it? What are we doing this for? Now is Sammy Sosa going to have to wait till he dies?
Right.
And if you're going to put in people, if you're going to now say there's no ban anymore on players that a long time ago in 1919 threw the World Series, mm-hmm. which to me is way worse than gambling on baseball.
But it's
they gambled on it and they threw the game.
Yeah.
The biggest game you can throw, the World Series.
Right.
Okay. If those have now been forgiven because the people are dead, okay, I'm okay with that. Then you better forget all about the steroids, people.
Right. Well,
and just put them, everybody just needs to go in, which I'm also fine with. But I hope they're not going to discriminate against that.
Right. You make two good points. Bringing up the guys from the Black Sox scandal, Shoeless Joe Jackson,
yep.
on top of a handful of other players from that team.
Eddie Seacott, George Buck Weaver.
Yep.
Shoeless Joe Jackson was a .356 career hitter.
He had 375 in that World Series.
Yeah, I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is he was a great player. Pete Rose is one of the greatest players I've ever witnessed in my life as a baseball fan. I'm old enough that I saw Pete Rose play. I saw Pete Rose creeping up to that record at Wrigley Field. He was like 2 away the day I was at Wrigley Field. He was an incredible baseball player. Was he an incredible human being? I'm not so sure about that.
Right. The point that the story that I was telling, it was all allegations.
Yes.
Right? It's nothing proven, but it kind of goes in with some of it's a layer. It's a layer towards his life, his career. There's a great documentary about him, this situation, his career, his life on HBO Max, I believe it's on. I watched it last summer. Really good documentary if you want to know more about Pete Rose as a player and what he meant for baseball.
17-time All-Star.
And that, I think watching it kind of leans me more towards like being okay if he went in. Going back to what you were kind of saying, baseball did this because it looks bad on them that they are taking in all this ad revenue, being partnered with some of these sports books, You go to every ball. You go to Wrigley Field at the DraftKings Sportsbook right outside Wrigley Field at guaranteed rate. I believe they're partnered with Caesars, right? There are sports betting ads everywhere. I don't have a problem with it. I love sports betting. I'm just a fan though, right? If they're going to continue to be so down on this whole gambling thing, betting on the game or whatever, while also taking in all this ad revenue with sports books, because sports betting has become legal and honestly a big thing in sports now, it does look bad. To go back to your point about letting the guys from the steroid era in, if there's ever a time where they're going to start taking ad revenue from certain supplements, I guess that maybe there's a time. But I do think that it is different, but in general, I agree with what you're saying.
The rules are the rules. If you want to hold everybody to the rules, that's fine. If you want to be high and mighty, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I personally can look myself in the mirror and say, I'm not a perfect person. Mm-hmm. And I know nobody else is perfect out there. So my belief is just put them all in, and you can write their true story on their plaque and in all the other things around Major League Baseball. This guy threw the World Series. This guy gambled on baseball when everybody knows as a player you can't gamble on baseball. I'm okay with all that. I'm also okay with if he was a player at the time and he gambled on it, that he'd be thrown out of the game. But it's the part about letting the player die before you put him in the Hall of Fame or you let him back into baseball. That's silliness. Yeah. That's spiteful to me. Like, what's the benefit of waiting till the person dies? Right. I think he had suffered enough at that point for his baseball sins, whatever they were. He had suffered enough at that point about being taken away from the game that he could have been teaching other players how to play the game the right way. Mm-hmm. Those things could have still happened. But I don't know. I still have a bitter taste in my mouth about Ron Santo going in after he died.
Every fan
does. And frankly, if you want to go all the way to football, Mongo should have been in the NFL Hall of Fame long before he got really sick and couldn't go there to be for his induction into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That's what bothers me a little bit about the museums and the Hall of Fames.
Yeah. I think, the Ron Santo situation, I think it's a lot different than Pete Rose and all these guys from the Black Sox.
Of course.
The Black Sox scandal was in 1919. These guys have been gone for decades, right?
I think Shoeless Joe died in 1951,
right.
So I don't.
So we're talking 50 plus years, 70 years, right?
We've lifted the ban.
Right, like
what
led them to this decision is more about the fact that they're making all this money off being partnered with all these different sports books, all these ads that you see on MLB Network and all these sports channels.
We love the gambling,
right? No,
but I understand why players can't be gambling.
From the league standpoint, it looks bad that they do that, but then they're so strict on all of that. So yes, you're right. It is hypocritical. I just think in Pete Rose's instance, should he have been at least eligible to be back within baseball earlier? Probably, from a baseball perspective. Now, will he get in the Hall? I guess we're going to see, because he's eligible in 2028. It's going to come.
Shoeless Joe, before there was the lifetime ban, Shoeless Joe could have been elected to the Hall of Fame. Okay. Mm-hmm. Nobody's ever voted on Pete Rose because it wasn't even allowed. So finally there will be a chance to vote him in. If they think, the writers think it's the right thing, maybe Pete Rose will be in the Hall of Fame. I think the whole thing's just a little bit crazy and a little bit silly, but here we are, and it's 2025.
To close, I'll just say that I never thought that I would see this day come to where he is even eligible.
Me either.
And I think in many ways, it is a step forward. No matter how you feel about it, I think Pete Rose's family probably has some closure at least. I just think that instead of being a bunch of hypocrites, it's better to not be a bunch of hypocrites when it comes to MLB and sports betting. So that's probably the pro on why I'm happy about this. But the con is more so about more down the line. Does he actually get in? If the voters, the BBWA, don't vote him in, that's on them. And I won't lose sleep if they don't, because, like I said, he's not exactly a good person.